Hey, what's up, guys? Hope you guys are having a good day. I am live in full effect. I'm sitting here in the Philadelphia airport. I'm heading home. I just finished up. We just finished up with the All Black National Convention, which was a roaring success. It was off the chain. It was a lot of fun. Everybody loved it. It was the most successful convention we've had to date. And I was really honored and flattered that so many people came out. We had people come from all over the world, Saudi Arabia, Korea, places like that. So I think it's super cool that you guys were so excited to be a part of the convention. So anyway, I'm gonna shoot a text message out to let our people in the streets kind of know what's going down. That I'm going live for a little bit. Let me see here. While we do that, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the follow button, the share button, notifications, all that stuff. And we're going to talk for a second about Kanye West and this really interesting thing that he said, which is interesting. You got to put it, but Kanye is short for context. You know, you got to be able to put it in context. So look, I'm going to try to put it in context for you. So give me 1 second here. Let me see here. Okay, all right. So, yeah, so I had some other stuff I was going to talk about that I thought was really interesting. And just stuff that kind of comes to mind. Like I was actually thinking about the dangers of dating a broke person, and I was going to actually warn you about that. I'll do a conversation about that a little bit later. You know, because money's a funny thing. Money's like a little bit of a magnet in that it you know, you attract a lot of people. It's a very easy way to make friends. But the problem is that when you bring in people that are broke, they get attached to you. And once they get attached to you, it can be hard to detach, you know, whereas regular people are able to, you know, kind of move on with their lives and all that. If you got money, you date somebody that's broke, just know that if you're the reason that they're eating every day, they are going to want to hang on for dear life, no matter what. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. Today, I want to talk about this Kanye thing. I think it's really interesting. Okay, so here's basically what I saw, what was reported to me in all these different media outlets. Basically, according to the Washington Post, Kanye West made another interesting little dramatic statement, in which he, you know, he has on this Make America Great Again hat, which, you know, of course, I don't vibe with that. You'll never see me wearing a MAGA hat. But at the same time, I don't care if people wear MAGA hats. That doesn't offend me. I don't care. I don't care if you like Trump. I don't care if you like Obama. Like that, none of that offends me because I know none of that really matters at the end of the day. None of that's really going to change the lives of Black people. Like seriously. Like, you know, if you think that President Obama saved Black people, then I need you to kind of give me some proof. Show me that, you know, that his presidency changed the lives of Black people. And I'm going to show you why you're lying. But same thing, Trump, the same way, you know, Obama doesn't have the power to save us. Trump doesn't have the power to destroy us, you know. And so anyway, Roland says, don't do this. You're helping him sell records. Yeah, I don't have a problem with Kanye selling records. Kanye is a good artist. You know, there's a reason why people like his music. And I think I'm talking about this for you, not so much for him or against him. So Kanye basically says, I'm going to read his tweet right here. It says, this represents good. So he's talking about his MAGA hat. He's wearing a MAGA hat. And he says, this represents good and America becoming whole again. You can disagree with that if you want to. I don't agree. We will no longer outsource to other countries. We will build factories. Now, I agree with that. I do think that Americans don't understand how we're being screwed when corporations are sending the best jobs overseas. I think that when you really analyze the gap in wealth between the rich and the poor, the reason the 1% is controlling so much is because they've been allowed to, mainly through NAFTA, through Bill Clinton's agreement, stuff like that, they're allowed to send a lot of your jobs overseas. That's why you see cities like Gary, Indiana, very Black cities, Milwaukee, other places in the Midwest. Any Black person who's in the Midwest knows you've seen where thriving communities where they had good jobs, good factory jobs, you know, are gone. Those jobs are gone. You know, like now they replace factory jobs with crackheads. You know, they replace respectability with humiliation. You know, they replace financial security with with all kinds of chaos, with violence. And that's what they did. Like, you go to some of these Midwest cities, they are fucking ghost towns. Excuse my French. They are ghost towns because people, the wealthy politicians, Democrat and Republican, were shipping all your jobs overseas and selling you out. So Kanye will get no resistance from me on that part. He says, so we built factories here. So he says, we will no longer outsource to other countries. I think that we're going to continue to do that. I don't think Trump or anybody can stop that. And I don't think that that's even a reason to love Trump. I think for various reasons, I won't go into as much. I just don't think Trump's a good president. I don't think he's measured enough. What I would really like is, I wish I could have a more aggressive version, a more aggressive and a more pragmatic version of Barack Obama. A more aggressive and more pragmatic version, meaning, there's something to be said about this whole, ideology of the latte sipping liberal who kind of wants to condemn everybody and tell you that, the black church is backwards because they believe marriage is between one man and one woman, and wants to waste their time on a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of ideological issues instead of actually solving real problems, or a black man who's just scared of being black. Obama was very much afraid to be black, except for when it came times where he was given permission to be black. His permission to be black came when it was time for him to sing an Al Green song, or time for him to give somebody a fist bump, or time for him to do something that was stereotypical. But he never had permission to be black when it came time to really resolve the real issues, to really fight on the issues that black people cared about. He wasn't allowed to be black when it came to really dealing with the problems that exist in our communities. He wasn't allowed to be black when it came to solving the violence problem right there in his own community. Do you understand that you can literally in Chicago, I live in Chicago, I live in the neighborhood of Barack Obama. You can literally live in that neighborhood and get shot a block away from the president's house. Straight up, black people, black children get shot 2 or 3 blocks from his house. Like, it's real, So at the end of the day, could he solve all those problems? I don't know. But I'm like, man, like, you could try. I'm not even president of the United States, and I try. Louis Farrakhan, he's not president of the United States, but he tries. There are other people out there that try. You're president, you can at least try. Even if you fail, you can try. So I think that when people say, oh, well, the reason he didn't try is because Republicans wouldn't let him do anything, I'm like, yeah, but you should still try. That's like people that say we shouldn't try to build Black Wall Street because they're going to burn it down. Well, you don't go into a basketball game where you say, well, they're going to beat us anyway, so we might as well not even try to win the game. No, you go out there and you try. You might lose 100 to 12, but you try. You got to try. Obama did not try. So anyway, and I think that's where you get all this chaos from. That's where you get all this stupidity from. But anyway, so let me read more of Kanye's quote. Kanye says, we will no longer outsource to other countries. We build factories here in America and create jobs. I love that. I would love that. I think that the reason that's not going to happen on the scale that it needs to happen is because there's too much money that would be lost by the wealthy. Too many 1%ers would lose billions of dollars if that happened. Too many 1%ers are making all their money by building their stuff overseas. So even though they could still be wealthy, like, you're worth 80 billion, you could be worth 20 billion if you brought jobs back home to America. Even though they could still be wealthy, and unfortunately, the greed does not allow them to do that. So I like what Kanye's saying there, but I don't think that he, I just think it's kind of like a bullshit vision that's fed to the American people that isn't ever going to come to fruition. That's what politicians do. They just feed you nonsense and then have you spinning your wheels like a hamster, working hard on their behalf to do nothing. So you exert all this energy to try to fight for something that isn't ever going to come anyway. And then you're mad because you're sitting in the same spot you were before you started running. So some people they either keep running in place or they stop running at all. I'm jumping off the hamster wheel and running in a different direction. So anyway, let me keep going. Let me read more of this. Kanye says, we will provide jobs for all. Now, this is where he got in trouble. This is the part where he mentions the 13th Amendment. He says, we will provide jobs for all who are free from prisons as we abolish the 13th Amendment. Okay, now listen to this. Let's pay attention to the statement. He says, we will provide jobs for all who are free from prisons as we abolish the 13th Amendment. Okay, now let's process this. In case you aren't aware, the 13th Amendment is the amendment that abolishes slavery. So technically, Kanye is saying that he wants to abolish the amendment that abolished slavery. Okay, that's why you should not, tweet while you're high. That's why you should not hit the chronic right before you go on social media. Before you get on Instagram, put down the bottle. Think about what you're going to say. Before you push that tweet out, check for typos. Check for grammatical issues. Make sure that what you're about to put out there ain't going to make you look stupid. because that part of the tweet certainly makes him look a little silly. Makes me wonder what they were smoking on that airplane. Now, what I'm going to try to do, which is actually impossible. I'm not even going to try to do this because I think it's impossible to do. I was going to say I'm going to try to not make Kanye look crazy. But here's the deal with Kanye. Here's my perception of Kanye. Kanye is crazy. I mean, shit, you're married to Kim Kardashian. That right there makes me question you from the jump. All these Negroes marrying these damn Kardashians. I don't know what the hell they got going on in their house. I think they got some witchcraft going on or something because they love these brothers. These brothers love them. So I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't think Danielle West would be happy with Kim Kardashian as a daughter-in-law. But Kanye is a guy who clearly does a few things masterfully well. Number one, he says things that, to get attention. And like I'm talking about him right now, I'm giving him attention, but he earned it. You say something crazy, stupid, whatever, it's conversation worthy. I'm going to discuss it. I don't care if he sells more records because of it or not. Because even if he got attention, if his music sucked, there are plenty of artists out here who get lots of attention, but just have crappy music and they don't sell any albums because of it, right? So he's a good artist. He's a good musician. He gets credit for that. No doubt. I'll never take that away from him. Also, the other thing about Kanye is, you wonder, where his mental health is in terms of some of the rants that he has, some of the behavior on stage. I think that drugs might be involved, possibly. I've seen indicators of that. So I think there's a lot probably happening there with him, which would speak to why he kind of says stuff that doesn't make any sense. Simultaneously, there's a part of him also that we should recognize as well, is that he's a rapper, right? Kanye ain't nothing but a rapper. That's what he is. And not that being a rapper is a bad thing. He's a very successful rapper, but he's a rapper. He's not a political science expert. He's not a scholar. He's not a person that is highly educated in anything other than producing beats and busting dope rhymes, right? That's what he knows. He's not even that great at fashion, from what I understand. I don't think his fashion business is so well. So Kanye's not really, he's kind of, in this space where we have these black entertainers that become analysts and they discuss all topics, and they will go to Lil Wayne and ask Lil Wayne, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? What do you think about civil rights? And Lil Wayne don't even know what civil rights is. Probably can't spell civil rights because it's too high, So I think that, it really kind of speaks to the white media in terms of who they lean toward, to get black commentary, but also speaks to us as a community in terms of who we pay attention to the most. Now, I do pay attention to the entertainers to a point because they influence so many black people, but I also pay attention to the scholars. If you watch my channel, you see lots and lots of scholars get put on that channel deliberately because I know that we don't pay attention to them in mainstream media. So that's the thing. So let's just be clear. Let's make this 100% abundantly clear. Let's agree on this point. Kanye is not a person that really should, his opinion should be taken with a big old gigantic grain of salt anyway. His opinion is not something that's particularly noteworthy other than the fact that he's got a big platform and a lot of people are going to respond to what he said. Also, remember, this comment was probably, if he could say it again, he'd probably say it different. I really believe that. I believe he didn't mean abolish the whole 13th Amendment. I don't believe he believes in abolishing slavery. So with that said, I want to switch the conversation a little bit and focus more on what he said and that topic as opposed to focusing on how crazy Kanye is. We can all agree that Kanye is crazy. We can all agree that he does stuff that don't make no damn sense. We can all agree that, like even in his last song, he was out of, what was it? I'm a sick fuck. I like a quick fuck. I like my, whatever he was saying in that song, it was just it showed this sort of desire to entertain you without necessarily being socially responsible enough to talk about what influence we're having on young people, right? Because he was making this song with this guy, and I forgot his name, Lil something. He's like Lil, everybody's Lil Pump. That's his name, Lil Pump. He's making a song with Lil Pump and trying to be relevant by rapping next to this young artist. But the reality is that Lil Pump is a really fucked up teenager. Lil Pump has a song called Drug Addicts, where he's literally telling young people to get hooked on drugs so he can destroy their lives. So, for every second that Kanye or anybody might claim I'm trying to help people by sharing opinions on and moving the needle on issues that matter, you're also destroying lots of lives when you're elevating drug addiction amongst young black people. You know, these young black men, you don't really come back from an addiction to OxyContin. It's hard to come back from addictions to crystal meth and ecstasy and perp and all this other stuff that the people sipping on and taking or whatever. You don't come back from that. So when you're 40 years old, 41, Kanye's 41 years old. When you're 41 and you're promoting that, you really have become, a detriment to the community, and you kind of have to confront that. You're not helping the process. You're not helping your people. Your mother, Danielle West, rest her soul, would not approve of any of this because she's an intellectual. She understands the power of your words. So anyway, now here's the thing. Here's more about Kanye. Actually, before I say that, make sure you take 1 second, please. Hit the like button, share button, and subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe. Also, if you want a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. Those of you who came out to the All Black National Convention this week, I want to say thank you. It was awesome. I love you. It was so much fun here in Philly. I'm sitting here in the airport, and I'm still on the high from the convention. It was absolutely amazing. So anybody who wants to know more about next year's convention or wants to even buy advance tickets, you can actually go to allblacknationalconvention.com. And you can actually take a look and buy for next year. We just don't have our location yet. We don't even know where we're going to have it. In fact, so if you actually know of a place, if you have a building that can hold, between 600 and 1,000 people, and you've got the space, send us an email if you want to host us. We'd be interested in hearing proposals. So the email address you can email is manager@boycewatkins.com. That's manager@boycewatkins.com. Also, if you want to follow me via text message, you can text the word Boyce to 31996. If you want me to alert you on text when I go live, text my name, Boyce, B-O-Y-C-E, to 31996. Now, with that said, let's talk about Kanye again and this whole 13th Amendment thing. So if you just came in, I'm kind of discussing what Kanye West just said about wanting to abolish the 13th Amendment and all this other crazy stuff. Now, first of all, we know that's not going to happen. He could call for it all day. That's not going to occur. So don't get nervous. I know that every time there's an election, they tell you the Republicans are going to put you back in slavery so they can scare you and get your vote. That's not true. They're not going to make you slaves again. And they're not going to abolish the 13th Amendment. Now, the first thought that comes to mind when I think about the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, though, is I think it's really fascinating that, that we even need a 13th Amendment, right? Like that we even need an amendment to tell us to not do something so horrible, so inhumane. A father doesn't need some sort of law or rule or procedure to tell him that he should not, rape his daughter, or that he shouldn't beat his wife. A man doesn't need that, and so I find it fascinating that we do live in a country, and I think it tells you a little bit about America. It should be fascinating to you that we even live in a country that we need that amendment. The second thing that I think is important to understand is that I think this is where Kanye was trying to go with this. So I'm going to try to help him out a little bit. Where he was going with it, in my opinion, was not that we need to abolish the 13th Amendment, that we need to make slavery legal. And y'all some more punk ass Negroes if y'all think that abolishing the 13th Amendment is going to make you a slave again. Like, seriously, no, they're not. If they try to enslave us, then a whole lot of people would just die. Black people are not built for slavery anymore. We would not allow slavery. We would not accept slavery. It's not going to happen. But the thing about it though is that the part of the amendment that I think Kanye was referring to is the exception. A lot of y'all know about the exception. Ava DuVernay discussed this in her documentary called I think it's called 13th. And in the documentary, she talks about the part of the amendment in the 13th Amendment, or sorry, not the amendment, the addendum or the exception in the 13th Amendment that says you cannot have slavery or you cannot own a slave unless that slave is a criminal, unless that slave has been convicted of a crime. And what that did was, and people knew this was going to happen back in 1865, 1870. What it did was it created a massive loophole that allowed them to continue slavery in America. Slavery is not abolished in America. Slavery is not over. Slavery is not, something of a thing of the past. Slavery exists. And what they did was they said, if you're convicted of a crime, then do whatever you want. You can make these people into slaves. You just need to find an excuse And really, this is the same logic that was used when it came to lynching. This is the same logic that was used when it came to lynching. When it came to lynching, there were a lot of people that would never lynch most black people. But what they would do is they'd say, okay, we don't lynch most black people, but we're going to lynch that nigga right there because we think he's a criminal. Kind of the same way Bill Cosby kind of got lynched this week, where he got sent to prison with no evidence, no nothing. Doesn't mean Bill Cosby is innocent. Doesn't mean Bill Cosby is a good guy. But I just think it's utterly fascinating that Bill Clinton has been accused of far worse than Bill Cosby. But there's no discussion about it. There's no effort to destroy him and his legacy. They're not erasing his presidency from the books. They're not going back and taking everything he's ever done and removing it. So I personally don't understand how two people can do the same thing and get very different reactions from the public. The only way you can understand the difference in the treatment between Bill Clinton and Bill Cosby is if you understand America. If you understand America, then you know that America is a country that has always given a double standard when it comes to black people. So basically, your son, from the time your son was born, may have been built and targeted for slavery. That's where the school to prison pipeline comes from. The school to prison pipeline is basically a partnership between public institutions, so the educational system and the prison industrial complex, to get your child ready for incarceration. Now, somebody says, stay focused, boys. I'm very focused. I'm talking about prison. That's what Kanye was talking about. Kanye wasn't talking about about sort of reenacting slavery. I mean, that wouldn't even make any sense. He was talking about the prison industrial complex. He's rapped about this. So what I'm saying is, and again, this is not me supporting what Kanye said at all. But what it is it's me providing context to it and understand the nuances of the argument. In fact, who was it? I talked to somebody this week who was talking about the Civil War. And after the Civil War, or as the Civil War was happening, how you had black former slaves that were fighting, that picked up guns and were fighting against the Southerners to end slavery. They were fighting for their freedom. And and the guy said, well, it kind of says that maybe Kanye wasn't totally wrong, that maybe slavery was a choice because they made a different choice. They made a choice to pick up those guns and start fighting and to say, we're going to fight for our freedom. So, at the end of the day, I think that we as people, I don't know if y'all can hear me. There's a lot of talk up here in the intercom. Let me know if you're able to hear me okay. But anyway, so I think that if you look at Kanye's statements, the sound bites have a lot more bite than what's actually beneath the surface. I think beneath the surface, what you hear is a guy who is not totally equipped to make arguments at this level. Let's just be clear about that. He's a rapper. He's not a philosopher. He's not a scholar. He's not a political commentator. He's not a scientist. So he's not quite qualified to really even have these high-level conversations. Honestly, there are better people out there that should be having these discussions, like Dr. Wilmer Leon and others. And he's trying to do his best in his own way. He also seems like a guy who's frustrated with the Democratic Party. I can get with him on that. I'm very frustrated with the Democrats. The only difference is I'm not going to go run over to the Republicans. I'm not going to run out of the hands of one pimp into another pimp. I don't do that. You don't go from Iceberg Slim to the pimp down the street who's going to beat you every day. Like, you don't do that, So basically, I personally think that we as black people have to just run away from it all. I don't think that we should be sitting there, just saying like, okay, well, we either choose the Democrats or the Republicans. It's either hope and change or make America great again. You got choices. You don't, just because you don't eat at McDonald's don't mean you got to motherfucking go to Burger King. Just because you don't want McDonald's don't mean you got to go to Burger King. Just because you don't want to drink Coke does not mean you got to go gulp down a goddamn Pepsi. Seriously, you have choices. You have options. Seriously, you don't, just because you don't spend money at one mall doesn't mean you got to go to the other mall and spend money. You could put your money in your pocket. You could put your money back in your pocket. So, what I will say is, Kanye is weird. I mean, let's just be clear. He's very weird. I think he knows he's weird. I think he knows he has to be weird in order to keep the attention of society for this long. Remember, he's been out there in the game for a long time. I think that Kanye says things to get attention. What is great, though, is about what he says to me is, he drives certain conversations. So I think that there's room for smart people out here, people, these experts. Some of y'all out here are in that category. Some of y'all are experts on Black history. Some of y'all are experts on the law. Some of y'all are experts on mass incarceration. It draws room for you to step up and kind of have a more thoughtful, enlightened dialogue about a very important issue. Because slavery never died. Slavery is still here. We still have slavery everywhere. There are hundreds of thousands of slaves out here. There are millions of corporate slaves. I mean, if you define slavery as a lack of freedom, if you define slavery as not being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, then a lot of y'all on this live stream are slaves. When you got up this morning, if you wanted to stay in bed and it was 7 o'clock, and your boss, the white man you work for told you to be at work by 8, but you want to sleep in until 9:30, what choice did you make? What choice did you have to make? And if somebody says, well, if you wanted to sleep till 9:30, why don't you just stay in the bed? What would you say? You say, I want to stay in the bed, but I got to go to work. I have to go. I have to go. I have to go. Well, if you have to do something, then use a motherfucking slave. I'm not dissing you. I'm not making fun of you. All of us are slaves at some point to something. I'm a slave to my goals. I'm a slave to my dreams. I'm a slave to my family in the sense that I love my family. I do what they tell me to do. I do what I need to do. All of that. I'm a slave to the community in the sense that I'm going to ride or die for Black people no matter what. So I'm okay with being a slave because I chose that slavery. Now the question is, what slavery did you choose? And are you okay with the choice that you made? What slavery did you pick? Did you pick slavery for your community where you're like, I'm going to ride or die for Black people. I'm going to do whatever I got to do for my community. I'm going to build. I'm going to give 40 hours a week to elevating Black people and give everything I got to my community. Are you a slave to something like that? Or are you a slave to some corporation that literally will replace you within 3 days after you quit, after you die? You could die at your desk and they will literally send a little handwritten note to your mama saying, Joe was a good employee. And then they're going to replace you in about 3 or 4 days because they got to keep the factory moving. What are you a slave to? Everybody's a slave to something. Everybody is. But I think obviously that's different from the slavery we had in 1802. There are people that are much worse versions of slavery than what we are. Those who are incarcerated right now, technically and officially in the eyes of the law, you are a slave. You are no different in the eyes of the law than a Black person who was on a plantation in 1788. If you are in prison, you are no different from what Frederick Douglass was before he got off the plantation. If you are incarcerated in the eyes of the law, right now, at this very second in 2018, in a country that allegedly abolished slavery, you are a slave. That is your legal and technical definition of who you are and what you represent. Now what? I think that says we have work to do. I think that also says that we got hoodwinked. I think that also states that maybe what Kanye's saying about abolishing the part of the 13th Amendment that has the loophole actually makes sense. In fact, let me tell you something that might change your perspective on what was said, in Kanye's statement. A little bit later, I saw Kanye's a second tweet. In a second tweet, to show you that the man ain't totally crazy. Scratch that. Kanye's crazy as fuck. We know Kanye's out of his mind. We know he's a weirdo. But to show you he's not totally crazy, Kanye did come back and he said, we should abolish the part of the 13th Amendment that says that slavery is legalized if you go to prison. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Now, I wish Ava DuVernay, who made the documentary The 13th, it was a, what's up, brother? How you doing? My man, thank you. Good to see you. I'm in Philly. I get mad love in Philly. I get the other Black people that walk by, they kind of look at me. I love you. If you're in Philly, I love you. I just want to say that to you. And I appreciate you so much. Anyway, well, if you're outside of Philly too, I love you too, but also in Philly, So So here's the thing. Let's go back to it. Okay, so Ava DuVernay, who made that documentary, The 13th, you know, she kind of, I think, didn't take advantage of an opportunity when Kanye tweeted at her. Kanye actually tweeted at her, like something like, I forgot what he tweeted. I forgot, whenever he made his comment, he added her. He did a little ad thing and got her attention. And she kind of came back and said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I ain't got nothing to say. I don't know nothing. I ain't said nothing, you know. And I hated that response, because here's what that was. What that response represented, to me, a very unthoughtful, unintelligent way to respond to something that everybody was going to be talking about, right? It represented a huge missed opportunity. Because you're so caught up in the stigma that Kanye now has because of his political ideas. We're supposed to live in a country where people have freedom of thought, but that shit's gone. Like, ain't nobody got no freedom or nothing now. Everybody wants to hate. You want to hate your neighbor and unfriend people and quit talking to people because of who they voted for. I'll never do that. I'll never unfriend you because you voted for a politician I don't agree with. Seriously, I'll never do that. I think that's dumb. I think that's so stupid. You know, if you love black people, then I love you. I don't care if you think that Trump's ideas are best for black people. I'm going to just say, I don't agree. And then we're going to move on with our lives. Smart people can do that. But the reason a lot of people aren't doing that is because most people aren't smart. We don't live in a smart country. We live in a dumbed down society. And we live in a society where people want to declare war on each other because everybody thinks that I'm right and you're wrong, and there's no room to listen to you. And I'm not going to hear what you have to say. I'm going to discount you and disrespect you and dismiss you and kick you out and make fun of you and ridicule you before you open your mouth. Before you even say anything, I don't even consider the idea that somebody who thinks differently from me might actually have a good idea. That is the sickest, most counterproductive, most ridiculous, most ignorant way to live your life. That if you ever want to be a stupid motherfucker, just go around and disrespect and ignore and blast anybody who disagrees with you and don't even hear what they say. It's tacky, it's corny, it's ridiculous. So here's the thing, because what it's showing also is that you can't defend your own ideas, and it also shows that you're afraid of ideas that differ from your own. Fear is what causes people to do stupid things. You know, rednecks, they fear black people. Some of them, that's why some of these rednecks hate black people, because they fear them. They don't know anything about them. They don't take the time to get to know, so they have fear. So they're like, oh, I hate niggers. What? How many black people do you know? Well, I don't know none, but I seen them on TV. Well, yeah, then you're an ignorant son of a bitch, right? So you got black people like that. Fear, you know, you running with the Democratic Party, that's fine, do what you want to do, but you have this fear that perhaps somebody on the right, a conservative, might present an idea that actually makes sense. They might actually say, well, you know, some of the stuff the Democrats are doing ain't really good for you. And here's another idea that might actually work better. And be out of fear, what you do is you shut them down before they get a chance to talk, and no good ideas get laid on the table. So anyway, with Kanye, you know, I told you what I think about Kanye. I think Kanye, I think he goes over the top sometimes. You know, he's trying to sell records. He married a Kardashian. I mean, come on, man, like, really? You know, he's strange to me. But when Kanye talks, if he's got something to say, you know, he's got a big platform. I'm like, well, what is he trying to say? You know, what is he trying to say? Let me hear it out. And so I think Ava DuVernay, if she was a smart person, would have said, you know, I don't agree with Kanye. I don't necessarily stand with him in his support of Trump. But I think that what he's probably saying is that we need to abolish the 13th Amendment, the section of the 13th Amendment that states that slavery is legal if you've been convicted of a crime. And as a prominent black person, Ava DuVernay, as a prominent Negro who's rolling with all these liberal white folks, who unfortunately is utilized as one of the tools for the Democratic Party, I'm going to go up in that next meeting I have with the Democrats, and I'm going to tell them that I demand that as part of their party platform, they push for the abolition of the section of the loophole in the 13th Amendment that says that you can incarcerate my son just because you decided that you want to convict him of a felony. Just because, you decided that you want to label him as a criminal. See, y'all got to understand, we miss out on as Black folks. One of the things that we miss, one of the things we miss as Black folks, we miss a lot as Black people. One of the things that we miss as Black people is we miss the fact that a lot of these laws and a lot of these procedures and a lot of this stuff that you think is written in stone is actually arbitrary. We miss that. We miss the fact that all this stuff is kind of made up. We miss the fact that, people that have power can bend the rules in their favor whenever they want to. That's why Bill Cosby's in prison and Bill Clinton is not. That's why Bill Cosby's in jail and Bill Clinton is not. Why? Well, because if you make the Cosby question one in which you simply say, do you think that Bill is guilty? Then most of us will answer, yes, I think he's guilty. I've always felt that way. If that's the only question you ask and you ask it in a vacuum of ignorance, then you can only conclude that he should have been sent to prison. That's why they do that. They do it that way. They say, well, they've always done that. That's why you get fired from your job and the white man down the hallway gets away with everything at work. He comes in with half the credentials you got and he gets the promotion, because when you go for the promotion or you go for the job or you go for a pay raise, they're looking at your resume and they're saying, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do this and you didn't do this and you didn't do this. And so what happens is it becomes you against perfection. So you're like, yeah, you're right. I didn't deserve the promotion because, they needed me to be here and I was only here. I came up short. And that's cool. That's fine if that's how you want to live. But here's the problem. Here's another way to look at it. You could say, yeah, I'm not perfect. I came up short, but here are all the things that I did do. And here are the things I did do that the white guy down the hallway was not able to do. And for some reason, y'all gave him a promotion and did not give me a promotion, despite the fact that I've got twice as many credentials as him, despite the fact that I have more experience than him, despite the fact that I put in more hours than him, despite the fact that I have a better job performance than him. See, when you compare, then you get a different result than when you are trying to exist in a vacuum against perfection. So that's kind of the argument with Cosby. Only smart people get this. A dumb person is going to say, oh, you're defending Cosby. Oh, you think he's innocent. Oh, you think you shouldn't, you're defending a rapist. That's what a dumb person says. What a smart person sees is they see that you can believe he's guilty, but there's a procedure that's supposed to be followed that is supposed to apply to everybody. That this procedure involving reasonable doubt, burden of proof, filing charges, that this procedure that is applied to everybody else should also apply here, right? So what's really fascinating is that this explains why he's in prison and Bill Clinton is not. Why have no charges been filed against Bill Clinton if you're filing charges against Bill Cosby? Bill Cosby had many allegations. None of them were proven. Bill Clinton had many allegations. None of them were proven. Nobody filed charges against Cosby in all those years. He was allegedly doing these things. Apparently in the 1970s and 60s, everybody was scared to tell the police that a black man raped him. So apparently we had some magical power that I'm not aware of. Actually, he didn't admit anything. He never admitted to drugging anybody against their will. You can't drug a drug addict, or you can, but it's hard to prove. It's hard to prove that you drugged a drug addict. And so when you have somebody like a Janice Dickinson, who, was clearly addicted to all kinds of stuff, who was clearly taking all these drugs on her own, it's like, okay, well, let's get the credible witnesses in here so we can actually have a conversation with them. You know, let's find the person who was kicking and screaming and filing charges and has been yelling about it since the 1960s. Don't get the person who was hooked on drugs, who took drugs willingly on a regular basis, who bragged to their friends that they were friends with Bill Cosby for many years, who went to visit his house several times after the alleged incident happened, who seems to be mad because he stopped sending them money. Don't get that person. Take those people out. And so I don't think they're willing to do that. But you know, again, that's what it looks like when somebody kind of gets railroaded. They don't railroad. It's hard to railroad a person that's totally innocent, or to railroad somebody who doesn't have any dirt. What you do is you railroad somebody where, you know, maybe they did do something wrong, and you just keep bending the law until you can go get them. I mean, even in lynchings, they didn't always lynch. They didn't really lynch a lot of black people who hadn't been accused of anything. What they did was they went after black people who've been accused of a crime. That's where a lot of the lynchings took place. So the idea of labeling, this is the point I want to make with this. This is the point. The point is that labeling is powerful. In the black community, labeling is done to us on a regular basis. If they take your son and your son gets in trouble at school, if your son goes to school and your son gets in trouble and they label your son a criminal, then what happens is your son will be a slave. There's nothing you can do about it. Doesn't matter if he's a good person. Doesn't matter if he didn't do anything wrong. All they have to do is apply the label, and the labels are artificial and arbitrary, but the labels stick. And that's what I think can be taken from Kanye's statement. I don't think it benefits us to walk away from his statement just saying, oh, Kanye's crazy. What the hell's wrong with him? I think it's better to say, okay, let's have a conversation about the 13th Amendment and the loophole in the 13th Amendment. I actually would probably vote for a Democrat if they made it their number one priority to get rid of the loophole to deal with the mass incarceration epidemic. I think that would be a person worth considering for my vote. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to go. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, share button, like button, and all that stuff. I'll come back a little bit later and talk to you guys at some point. If you're from the All Black National Convention, if you went to the convention, I sent you guys an email right after the convention. So we're going to do our follow-up and our debriefing on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Check your email and you can actually see where we're being invited. You're being invited to this private Zoom session. We're going to talk about the convention, how to make it better, how to do it better for next year. Anybody who wants to go for next year, just stay connected, and I'll let you guys know. When we make plans for the convention. If you want a free copy of my book, you can go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. If you want books for your children that you can read that might help your kids to learn about Black history and economics and all that, go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. I'll see you guys soon. Have a good day. Be good. Peace.